Я рад приветствовать и хочу поблагодарить всех, кто сегодня из спикеров.
I would like to thank our speakers who are bold enough to come to this podium today. Without further ado, let us just start our discussions, and we are limited in time, and we are beginning a bit later than expected. Valery, I have a question to you. I already share that information with the audience, and just also discuss the information letter from the Bank of Russia about the application of the global code principles among the financial institutions. Perhaps you can introduce the subject in a better detail right now. I am appreciative of the fact that you really presented that subject, that issue for me. We could have really disclosed that a bit earlier, but for the days of silence, more or less, and that was really a much awaited recommendation to join the code and adhere to its principles, and I think that we are going to develop our capacity to assess the code and recommend its applications. We are working towards developing the code of ethics, and we are trying to guide our market players to at least disclose information about market makers in organized trading, whether those market players actually joined and adhered to the code. And we also wanted to recommend those market makers to join the code, really. We also advise to disclose and communicate to the non-professional corporates in the market about the code so that they can also adhere to it. We do hope that this overall trend will continue, and undoubtedly we are interested in having those principles of ethics to be established and to be reflected in the mentality and attitudes of the marketplace. Do you think the publication of that document is of much significance? Well, I think the publication of this document and the work done by the association and the Bank of Russia to popularize and advertise the document is of dramatic significance, because this is not for any short term, but this is rather a foundation for the whole industry along the horizon. And I hope that all the entities and players will undertake to join the code. We already have a roadmap of doing so. And it is really an important milestone on the way of the developments of the Russian market, especially in the context when not much has been regulated by proper regulations. This vacuum is now filled with this code, which is a good thing. Vasily, I have a question to you. You are in charge of an SRO of the financial market. And the question is, you are providing this global umbrella to many institutions. Perhaps you can provide a bird's eye view of what is going on under this umbrella, how the financial market is being developed. And what do you think as an SRO representative? Thank you very much indeed. When I was still with the bank, and I was in charge of Forex and the market, and I do remember that model code, which was available back then, and actually it helped me because I also had some discussions with the internal audit of the bank, and I had to refer to that model code to more or less demonstrate what was available from the market back then. Now, regarding today, I would say that you wanted us to give you a bird's eye view of the financial market. The financial market today, in general, is coming to its regulation and self-regulation by the codes of ethics. 2 or 3 years ago, we had a conflict between two members of our market, and we did not find any regulations to really provide a good judgment, and we only used our code of ethics for that. We back then developed our first code for the members of our association, and this is mandatory for all our participants and members, and I do see that we are kind of guided not by sometimes rules but principles, and this is true of many of the areas of the forex market. We did a lot there. All our participants, on the one hand, should comply with the code of ethics for the marketplace, but there are also other areas where the players need to understand how to behave themselves. And this is where we come in the exchange market. All our dialogue with the Bank of Russia, when we are discussing the spread of those principles across the market in general, is of essence, and whoever adheres to that code would be viewed as a responsible player in the market. It is not really now fashionable not to comply with the code. As you know, we had a long discussion, including with the analysts of that. We do see the inflow to the market of, private individuals who want to invest into, say, stocks or maybe try their hand at forex. And the question is that the analysts that are providing some recommendations, they should be responsible for whatever they are advising. They should not be anonymous. And that was a big discussion. We had this discussion together with the Bank of Russia. We have now a register of such responsible analysts, which is available from our website. It includes big banks and independent analysts. So we have more than 50 of those on our register. And this movement, from the point of view of the whole market, towards some ethical norms as practice is very correct, and I think the Bank of Russia and the market players are supportive of that. Well, this ecosystem of supervision is based on ethics. When your relations with your partner, with your counterparty, with your investor is based on such ethical norms, when they are long-term and when there's no mis-selling, there's no really misunderstanding there, and we want this high-quality, long-term relationships between them. And we think that this FX Global Code would be adhered to by the biggest and best players, and this would be a standard for all, including for all other areas and in all other segments of the market. We would see the same trend. We, as the SRO, are prepared to coordinate that with all the market participants, and this is a good venue to really take into account all the views and to become a center which concentrates all such best practices that we need to have in the financial market. Valery, in your view, what do you think of that? And how do you assess this joint work with NFI and maybe with other SROs about this code of ethics and this global code? But do you think this is a timely initiative, and what would be the continuation of that initiative? Because there are different opinions on that, because people say that analytics today is just going through Telegram channels from social media, and in terms of just because it is quite vivid and but not exactly that it is accurate or correct. People are not really responsible for whatever they are, publishing in the social media. And it means like, pop divas, more or less, are the key analysts for some audience. Who exactly do you mean? Which pop diva? Well, I wouldn't disclose the names, but still. Anyways, your first question about the retail analytics. Indeed, what we started off with was our contact with CFI. And we agreed with them that CFI, for free of charge, will provide to Russia Russian translation and would also communicate various case studies and background materials for us to, share, and also that we can more or less put this into our code of ethics as a form of soft regulation. Then NFA actually adopted this CFA recommendation to transplant into the that is the code of financial analysts, and they put this into their project of the register or list of analysts. It's not that those analysts started to join that list. It's just because the SRO did a lot and continues to do a lot for that, to have such a good list. I don't think that you will have more than 50 of those, high-caliber analysts. Maybe the list is almost exhaustive, but still, we are only in the beginning of the way because we are capturing the retail sector. And indeed, the professional investors do know about that list of the responsible analysts, but not the retail ones. And I do see now the need, to knock on the door of each and every investor so that those investors who would really know about this line of confidence. And we need that list, that register, to really establish that line between those who, not only have the right to speak up, but also those who have certain skills and competence and who may be responsible for their advice if they can be suspected in some wrongdoing. So this is a tool of, assessing the confidence level in those who are offering the analytical advice. And we are only starting to really communicate that to the general public, to the retail investors. The analytics available from Telegram and social media, how do you pose that? This is a new reality. Those millions of people coming to the market, to them, this is a very fast and accessible channel of information, and it's like a fast food information. They're not using any, info screens, or they're not reading those, newsreels. They're getting their information from Telegram, Instagram, or from some other social media, and there, of course, in those newsreels and other channels, they think they get some analytics, but we are saying that this is not analytics. This is rather private judgment of that person, and you should not be trusting your money to a person whom you are not going to see at all. And this is the first thing to do, and this is about the public list of financial analysts. Undoubtedly, the duty of the community should be to inform the investors where they can check and verify the information that they receive otherwise from the analysts. And this is quite an important task because you're now providing and sharing information with a lot of people. Regarding the codes for the professional community, because this is more or less like the reverse side of the medal here. And indeed, the code, to me, is the opportunity for the regulator and the professional community to use the same language through regulatory acts, through documents. You can, of course, establish some rules, but the common understanding and the value of market judgment or any actions of the market players can only be assessed and appreciated through such principles and general rules. So by establishing the principles, you get the, universal understanding of the regulator and the community about what is acceptable and what is not. And the code is a chance for the regulator and for the professional player, like I said, to speak the same language. So that with the maturing markets and markets getting more complicated, you can get some chance of reconciling common principles. Without that, it is not possible. I would like to give the floor now to Igor and Marich. And Igor, to the exchange, probably the previous year was the year of continued explosive growth in all kinds of instruments. And I wonder whether this growth and the market in general would be influenced by the regulatory environment and this shift of the focus from towards the development of professional behavior standards. And indeed, in terms of its standards, yes, MOEX was one of the first to sign its commitment to the principles of the global code. But whether it did have some impact on your professional business or not, perhaps you can share that with us. Indeed, well, this commitment to the code did not have much effect on the business, but I think that businesses are usually affected by standards. We now have 15 million retail customers and investors coming to the market. Like a few years back, it was only 2 million clients. Now, today, we have 15 million with a totally different context. About drivers, we discussed those in different venues. And of course, it is not the regulation that is the key driver. Let me say lower rates and better channels of access to the market through the digital sales channels and better access and engagement of banks and brokerages, etc. And of course, the pandemic with the helicopter money, of course, people were locked in their homes, and of course, that helped a lot. But all those trends would not have been possible without having done a lot in terms of regulation in previous years. And that is about the digital channels of access and remote verification tools and certain incentives that were offered by the government from all sides. And it's one of those more vivid stories. And of course, regulation did not really had much effect. But if you take the professional community and what it means to us, it is about new challenges. It is about this massive inflow of retail customers into the market. And I would say that the industry is not really going smoothly through those challenges. And the reaction to that was this regulation that was put into effect as of October 1st. Again, this is probably in response to the massive inflow of retail customers who do have some impact and influence on the market. And the reaction to such challenges may really define many things in business in the coming years for all of us. Coming back to our discussion of the retail analysts, it is also an important story. We do see that in the West and also in Russia, when you do have some inadequate price changes, especially in relation to non-liquid stocks, and we are trying to react to that through our tools and also by informing our clients and by improving the financial literacy. That's where we are putting a lot of effort in. And regarding the role of analysts, perhaps we all remember all those good old times when we consumed low quality, not really genuine products. But then the situation changed because of two trends, because that good, high quality goods are more accessible today, and that we see that producing low quality goods is costlier and not that effective. And these are the two principles that we need also to apply in our case. We need also really to help analysts to advertise themselves and promote their services, and there are such actions being taken for that. And when people are coming to us and ask questions whether the MOEX can help in promoting high-quality content and services, of course we are interested in that, but we also need to have some certainty there. We are saying that we are promoting this content because it does have the characteristics of being high quality. On the other hand, of course, it would be good to see some public stories, how this bad faith behavior would meet its proper reaction. Regarding other regulatory points that I would like to highlight here, in the first half of the forum today, we discussed a lot how the market is so complicated and fragmented, how many clients with different needs we have, and how in principle can we offer the best services and the best price. We had different opinions, including from the sell side, whether we need to provide different sources of pricing, or maybe the client would not need that and would rather prefer to have one single good price. All of this reflects the fact that the market is really fragmented, and the FX market is historically fragmented. But then this is the story that is capturing other segments of the market. And in this sense, Russia does have quite an advanced financial system with a high level of verification and digitalization, and offers a lot of those remote services. And in a situation like this, we may not be paying too much attention or a lot of attention to the regulation of best execution and internalization. But if you take a look at the Western practice, then the colleagues there have been working with this problem of fragmentation of the market for quite some time. And there they lived through a number of rounds of adaptation to new realities. It's MIFI 1 and 2 and analyzes, etc., etc. It's quite an unexplored story, and what they think to be a benefit, the competition between the price providers getting the best price to the clients, it is really should be to the benefit, because otherwise it's more or less like a story for them all. And if the end user would not have the exact understanding of the price, or whether it is solid and executable, and what are the nuances in that execution domain, and what would be the interests of those who are providing such a price, now then it would not really improve the quality of the price, but rather create additional risks. I do believe that we have some opportunity for the best execution regulation, which has not been used by others, yet it was not needed. It is about the classes and instruments where there was no much fragmentation. But now it is clear that this is a challenge that is going to really become bigger, and fragmentation in various classes and segments of the market would be higher. And I think that we should all think rather about how a good regulation should look like, so that good faith players and clients be protected.
Thank you. Igor, next question. Valery, what's your take, and maybe others, and Dmitry can weigh in? Last year, actually this year, regulation was introduced for market makers and to draw a line between client market making from classic market making. A letter was sent out. So conceptually, the idea is to limit the probability of any market manipulation. It might not be the most precise description, however. Here's my question. We received a letter with recommendations. What's the effect? We cannot measure the effect so far because regulation kicks in starting from April 22. And in terms of volume from October 2022. So it's a staggered enforcement. Why? I think we need this differentiation. We used to have many concerns on whether market making could be done at the expense of end customers, including retail customers. And we also have two types of end customers, qualified and unqualified investors in our Russian terminology. This is why we need to know what is good, what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not. So this is some kind of extra regulation, or maybe a new interpretation of it. They relied on specific research. It's like a data-based, science-based, case-based research. So this kind of regulation is a pioneering one. We relied on stats and hard data from our domestic markets or domestic exchanges. And that also follows in line with international recommendations, including from IOSCO. Dmitry? It's not something new. It's been there for years. The central bank would usually send out bulletins highlighting those gray zones where market making was possible at the expense of the customer and expressing concerns. It could be used as a carve-out to cover up for some non-bona fide malicious practices. And this year, this regulation has been passed. So it used to be just a judgment on the part of the central bank. Now it's a regulation. But we have to recall that sometimes client-based market making helps in stabilizing stock exchange prices. And there are green shoe, brown shoe techniques. Could you please move closer to the mic? So these practices are very much in demand. Particularly with the involvement of foreign companies. So if the regulator thinks such practices are acceptable to stabilize the market, and if it's possible for the purposes of brown shoe and green shoe, it would be in demand, it would resonate with the industry. Now, on stabilization, we are looking at whether amendments could be made to allow for client-based market making for stabilization. I support such amendments. Stabilization should be an exception. Okay, what are the prospects going forward? What about algo regulation? Valery, what's your take? We've been discussing it in different jurisdictions in terms of principles and specific rules. Where are you on this? Any plans, or you think it's fine at the moment? It's been heavily debated globally for several decades. The regulation that is proposed is, to an extent, could be negative for exchange-traded platforms, and could be bad for liquidity. Currently, algo systems in a stable market do not eat into liquidity. They create extra liquidity around Bitcoin. And I think it's a positive factor, given the number of retail customers that have entered the market recently. They can execute their orders at an appealing price in the necessary volume. And algorithms very often help them get rid of price inefficiencies, imbalances, because some of the market participants behave in a bad way or make mistakes. So for some market players, it might prompt some losses, but it's because of the quality of their execution. But for the market in general, it's more of a positive story. It helps to remove those destabilizing factors from the market. But in any case, we are tracking low latency and high-speed algorithms, their impact on the market. We look at micro factors, we look at macro factors, macro ranges. We've been in consultation with the exchanges, and we're having quite an efficient dialogue with the exchanges. It's an area which requires ongoing attention and measurement and analysis. So far, we're not planning to introduce any regulation for HFT or low latency trading. The better we identify such systems on organized trading platforms, the better. The more convenient it will be for the organizers themselves to assess the workload on those systems, and for the regulators too, in terms of measuring the volume that is pumped through those systems and through the trade systems themselves. It will, in case of any rare but major mistakes in their operations, you can reach out to the regulator very quickly with the organizers of the trading platform to avoid any risks for the entire system. Igor, any few words about these joint operations with the central bank? How efficient your operations are? We get feedback regularly, or are you getting feedback regularly, like, please have a look at these transactions and what do you say? And again, we are getting those letters, we're getting those concerns from you, and we believe that these are false red flags. And I think maybe your red flag early warning system is not fine-tuned. So we get warnings from you, but not regularly, but maybe other banks are getting warnings from you too. Yes, we do that. So you've got the algo panel year in, year out. And without algorithms, it's impossible to trade today. And market making is impossible. If I were to build on the previous question. So that's part and parcel of the market today. We treat it as it is, We are pragmatic, we're positive. On the one hand. On the other hand, algorithms could be different, and they could be a source of issues for us too, in different dimensions. It could be extra burden in our IT system. And some malicious practices, that we've been monitoring. I said it's not related to algorithms. I think you draw a line here. Algorithms one thing, and non-bona fide practices could occur without algos. We certify those technical instruments that get connected to the exchange, and we do have some technical monitoring in place. We do have some alerts, system of red flags, which go off in case we believe it's irrational behavior, if it creates risks for our infrastructure. And we have response measures. We communicate with that participant, and then we just block those logins. We've been developing this monitoring system. Different entities register the exchange for a different purpose, and so we hope we can cover all of them. What you said, that should be an anti-fraud system, and there is a sophisticated monitoring system. It looks at certain criteria and comes up with alerts. And then we send letters to those participants. What was it? You shouldn't worry too much about it. Just need to say in all earnest to you what was it all about. And since you're with us and since you've been moderating this session, it means that everything's fine. Just trust me, okay? Now, going back to market making, because these are related issues. Market making is the key instrument to maintain the necessary amount of liquidity in the system. It's a dual effort. On the one hand, it's like a legit manipulator. It does have an impact on price through its transactions, but it has a clear, noble goal, which is set forth. And we monitor them, and there is a contract between the market maker and the platform. But on the other hand, there's a commercial relationship between the two. This is a service, and you always have to pay something, a kind of a fee. This is why, just like the standard things we use, certification, monitoring, looking for non-standard deals, we also use additional research and analysis tools to make sure that the contract terms are enforced. We'll also look at whether market-making activities provide for this extra liquidity. Is it really good for the market liquidity? We've been developing this tool for quite some time. It's a continuous process, but today we're much more equipped to be able to respond to the conduct of market makers and to their efficiency. Perhaps we would need to fine-tune something in our current software that we offer them. As for the new regulation, we've been in close contact with the central bank. We're very satisfied. We're very happy with the dialogue that we have. Central bank wants to make market making as efficient as possible. We believe we are on the same page in that, in the regulation that will be introduced. Will not create any issues for the market. It will further improve the operations of the market. Thank you. Time is up. Maybe some final remarks. What are the key challenges or trends in financial markets based on what we discussed? Dmitry, Valery, Igor, just 1 minute from each of you. Thank you. I just wanted to sum it up. Indeed, it's a very relevant topic, and we need to focus on regulation. So sometimes research just turns into an individual investment advisory. We need to differentiate those. This is also extremely important for all of us. And in terms of the code, there needs to be a balance between the amount of regulation and self-regulation that's done through the code, best practices by different SROs. So we need to create that proper balance to make sure that the regulator is happy and the industry is happy too. So I hope that the future is with that balance.
Well, a year ago, I'm just recalling this lockdown, which actually started a year and a half ago. The association, by conducting this FX event, that was the first offline event, which was the forerunner to the other events across the year. So probably let's have another one the soonest, so that we're not really locking down again. Well, regarding our today's session, a priority to me was and still is the regulation of the market in terms of the behavior patterns in trading and the activities of the financial sector. Indeed, we have some questions about the work of the analysts and the need of the financial institutions in getting good quality advice as to what is acceptable, what is not, and of course we're talking about the financial literacy here. And there are a number of other points and issues that relate directly to the work of the regulators and operators. The feedback there is very important, and it helps us to promptly react to various inefficiencies in regulation and other shortcomings of the market. And you also mentioned those regular calls that you receive from the professional community that come to the situational center, and here with us would be Alexei Sorokin from that situational center. Many of you know him, but I would like to advise the professional community that those calls are not really an outsourcing of sorts for internal control systems. Please do not remember that when you make another mistake, you would be warned against such a mistake before that. So better really put your internal systems in line with what is going on so that we can, before we get a warning or a notice from the situational center. The idea of that center is actually not to reveal any shortcomings, but rather to oppose malpractices. So this is for our general understanding. This is not a form of trying to outsource the internal control. I do not think that we actually assume that as it is, as you described, but rather it is for us to be better at our job. Igor, please. Well, I mean, you think that the main thing would be to have the market developing and getting more diverse, and many clients want really to become direct players in the market in a broader sense, so that they can have access to some price quotes. And many believe that we may face additional challenges in trying to fine-tune the regulation that we now have. And the way those products are offered to the clients, at which price, and how actually these clients can consume such information and products, and what is the understanding of the clients of the pricing and products that they are being offered. When we're talking about the exchange, that's probably the key point. So for the OTC, it might be a bit different, but there will be some boundaries remaining, and I do not think that we are going to really turn our OTC platform into a proper exchange, although we acquired one, but we may want to have a broader diversity in our products, so what we discussed here. And what we're going to discuss more, Vasily, in terms of regulation, indeed, I think that we need to state that we already have the ethics in the market, and there's good dialogue between the players, and that would be really for all of us to really develop our digital capacity, and we need really to form this white list, analysts, etc. This is something. This is the our focus, which is the most, which is the best now. So we need to really make an effort in this area. Okay, perhaps we can stop here.